Hey everybody, it's Angela back with another process video. And for this layout, I'm going to use the winnings from Mercy Tierra's 27-day challenge that I won in March, and there's her card. And she sent me some wonderful items. There's a lot of this basic gray Aurora in there with the blues and the purples, and then there's some like gold thickers that are just gorgeous. And there's stars in this collection, those Maya Road banner pieces, cork pieces, these Studio Calico stars, and then some Scraptastic stamp sets and stuff that are just really cool. And so I thought it would be fun to make a layout using these products. And the only thing that wasn't included in there were papers, so I dipped into my stash for some paper. And they're all Heidi Swapp papers. This one and the polka dot are from the Heidi Swapp, I think it's called Serendipity paper, and that big star paper is from Heidi Swapp No Limits, I believe is the name of the collection. They're paper pads from Michaels that I got, so I'm just trimming off the top of the paper pad where I tore them out. And I apologize ahead of time if this process video is a little disjointed. I was interrupted quite a few times while making this layout, so I'm sorry if it doesn't flow quite as well, but I will try to narrate it as best I can. So my idea is to make a column of papers on the left hand side and sew down them and ruffle up the edges. So you can see here I'm just cutting my two pieces of paper in order to make those two columns. And so I'm not going to put my adhesive all the way to the one edge where I'm going to sew. I'm going to glue it back a little ways just to give me some room to sew and then fluff up the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and put this bottom layer down. And you just need little bits of these really bold patterns. You know, a little bit goes a long way if you don't want to use all your paper. Although it would be a cool layout to just use that whole big star sheet. Would be fun too. So now I'm going to go to my sewing machine and do a stitch down there and rough up the edges just a little bit. And my idea was to put the picture here and tuck other little embellishments all up and down by that stitching. And so I start with putting this Hello Thickers, which worked wonderful. This was when we first met Levi when he was born and we had gone to the hospital. So we were saying our first hellos to him. And this label that said awesomeness, I didn't necessarily want the word, but I love that pop of blue color to kind of, it kind of holds that photo in, kind of bookends that photo. But I was having a little bit of a hard time doing everything kind of sideways for the wording. You know, I go ahead and put this triangle down and other stuff that had words on it. So I decide to turn my photo and do it in this position. So I'm still going to try to tuck some things up under that, but I'll mostly make clusters just around the photograph. So I go ahead, I add a little bit of foam tape underneath that photo just to hold it up since it's got to kind of go over where I stitched it and stuff there. I like this little high banner from the Aurora collection. And so I'm going to put a little bit of foam tape below that. And it brings in a little bit more color on the bottom of that banner, a couple different teal, a little bit of that kind of salmon color and the purple color. And then the Aurora collection also has this kind of gold, it's not metallic gold, but it's kind of a gold color. And it works really well with those thickers. So I like that heart, and I just put a little bit of foam tape behind that. So my clusters are kind of coming together. Although I get a little sidetracked, and instead of having like really defined clusters, I kind of wind up making a big cluster all around the photo. And you'll see that later I kind of change that up by making it more of a right-hand column instead of just a round circle of embellishments. And I'll explain that later when I get to it. So the Aurora collection has these wonderful alphas, and they have the the letters in each of the different, or in several different colors, so you can kind of pick and choose which ones you want to use. So I go ahead and use those colors just to bring a little more weight to the bottom of that photo. And then this Scraptastic stamp set has these little banners that have stars that hang from them. And so I have the banner portion, and I'm going to stamp that first using my Versamark glue pad. And I should have embossed it right here and then gone back and done the stars so that I could kind of see where I was stamping, because when I go to stamp the stars I can't see very well where the banner string is, and so I don't get it perfectly aligned, but that's okay. I can hide anything that, you know, isn't perfect. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of embossing powder on this and brush off any loose powder. And then I knew when I did it I would need to be really careful not to hold my heat gun too close to that photo or the stickers, you know, to melt or anything. I knew it would warp a little bit, but I'm okay with that. It's not going to really show in the page protector. So, and I had forgotten to take the adhesive backing off my foam tape there. So, and you can see where I stamped it, because I couldn't see where I was stamping. There's kind of a gap between those two banners. They don't meet together, those two banners on the right hand side. So I looked through the cork pieces for the star. I knew there was a star in there, and I'm going to use that where the two banners kind of swag together there in the center. So, you know, if things aren't perfect, you can always hide it. So I had originally thought I was going to use those Maya Road banners, those chipboard pieces, and I actually did gold emboss those, but they wound up being just too big of a scale for this, so I'll use those on a future layout. So I'm going to go ahead and just glue down this little cork star to hide where those banners don't swag together and touch right there. And then I wanted another little bit of cork on the layout too, so I pull that other circular cork piece with the star on it, and I decide to put it up there where it can kind of nestle against the hello. So I'm liking that. And there you can see I had pulled in one of those Maya Road chipboard banner pieces, but it was just too big, so I decided not to put those on the layout. So I'm looking through the stickers, and I want to bring a little more color to the layout. So I have this that's a date sticker, and I decided to put that at the bottom so I can put his birth date on there. And then I also want to bring some color up to that top cluster, because it's looking just pretty blue and gold and cork up there, and so I'll want to add some color here in a minute. I do pull off another one of these thicker hearts and decide to put that on the banner. I look at the vellum pieces, but they were a little too citrusy for this layout. And there you can see I'm trying to bring some color up to that top cluster, and I start with some of the circle stickers, but they just didn't seem to work because they were, you know, there was just too many circles up there, so they weren't nesting together quite right. But I do want to bring some color up there. So you'll see in a second here, once I find a place for that little star sticker to live, that I look on the sticker sheet and there's an arrow on there that has some color on the end of the arrow right there, and I just snip the end of the arrow off and take that triangle and I put it next to this other triangle, so the triangle shapes just seem to work together a little better. So that brings a little bit of color up there. And then I kind of just play around here with this heart for a little bit, just making sure that that gets positioned how I like it. Then I noticed my photo was pretty crooked, so I went to straighten it, but then that makes everything else on the page pretty even more crooked, and so I go ahead and just compromise on the photo straightness, but that left a big gap on that left-hand banner to my photo. So I'm just going to use this other sticker to layer in there. And like I said, any kind of mistake, you can fix it and hide it with a sticker or something like that. So I just put that sticker there, and that brings in a little more color to that side. And then I use the bottom part of that same sticker to add just a little extra layer right below the photo. So I'm just going to trim that up. Brings a little more color and another little layer under there. And as you can see now, is what I was saying earlier, it's starting to look like one big cluster. It's like a big circle on my page of the photo with items all the way around it. And I didn't really want to have one big circle. I want it to be a little bit more of a column. So I'm going to go ahead and first I'm going to add some sprinkles above and below my photo to kind of give it more of a columnar feel on that right hand side. And then I'll also add some extra embossing to help reinforce that as well. So that's kind of what I'm thinking at this point, is that the whole composition is getting a little bit too circular for me. So I go ahead and I cover up my photo and I get the Heidi Swapp Gold Color Shine. And I'm going to just do some sprinkles kind of above and below my photo cluster. But they're pretty subtle, you know, there's not a lot of substance to them. So because they are gold and that's pretty bold color paper. So I go back to the two Scraptastic stamp sets and there's some little stars on each of them. So I just pull out all the little stars and I go ahead and get my Versamark. And I'm just going to stamp those kind of above and below the photo just to enhance it going to the top and bottom of the page. And again, I couldn't really see exactly where I was stamping, so I did overlap those two stars kind of in the bottom middle there, but it still looks fine. So I'm just brushing off the loose powder, and then I'm going to go ahead and do this top. And because those big stars on the paper are kind of have a spot varnish on them, they wanted to, the embossing powder kind of wanted to stick to it, kind of had a little bit of static electricity there. So I had to make sure to really brush off all the excess powder. And again, I had to be really careful with my heat tool that I didn't make the stickers curl up or the photo or anything like that. So I just go ahead and heat set those two, and that just kind of helps bring your eye from the top to the bottom of that right hand side of the page. And so I'm liking that a little better than having just one big circular cluster. So here are the close-ups, and you can see the embossing and the thicker